Marcus Blackwell, the ruthless 45-year-old CEO of Blackwell Industries, built his empire by crushing competitors and showing no mercy in business. Known as the Iceman on Wall Street, he's about to announce the closure of a small-town factory that will devastate an entire community. But when 80-year-old Emma Chen, daughter of one of his employees, confronts him with nothing but innocent questions about why her daddy cries at night, Marcus faces the one thing his billions can't buy: a mirror to his own lost humanity. Before we begin, tell us, what city or country are you watching from? It's always incredible to know how far these stories reach. The mahogany doors of the Blackwell Industries boardroom slammed shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Marcus Blackwell didn't look up from his tablet as 23 executives filed out, their faces pale with the weight of what they'd just been ordered to execute. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Sir?" His assistant Jennifer lingered by the door, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Riverside plant. That's 300 families, Mr. Blackwell. Maybe we could..." "Could what?" Marcus's voice was ice. He finally looked up, his steel-gray eyes boring into her. At 45, Marcus Blackwell had perfected the art of intimidation. His tailored Armani suit fit like armor, his silver hair was slicked back with military precision, and his face showed all the warmth of a marble statue. "Could find a way to keep a bleeding factory open because it makes us feel good." Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. She'd worked for Marcus for 8 years, long enough to know that behind his billion-dollar empire lay the bones of countless businesses he'd crushed without a second thought. "I just thought..." "You're not paid to think about feelings, Jennifer. You're paid to schedule my appointments and answer my phone." Marcus returned to his tablet, his fingers dancing across quarterly reports that showed Riverside Manufacturing as a red hemorrhage on his otherwise pristine profit margins. "The factory closes in 30 days. End of discussion." The door clicked shut, leaving Marcus alone with the city sprawling 40 floors below. Manhattan glittered in the afternoon sun, a concrete jungle where only the strongest survived, and Marcus Blackwell was the apex predator. His phone buzzed. "Blackwell." "Marcus, you magnificent bastard." The voice belonged to Richard Hayes, his oldest friend from Harvard Business School. "I just heard about Riverside. Ballsy move, even for you." Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, a ghost of a smile playing at his lips. "It's just business, Rich. The numbers don't lie. 300 jobs in a town of 5,000 people? You're going to wipe that place off the map." Richard's laugh was sharp. "Remember when we used to care about that kind of thing?" The comment hung in the air like smoke. Marcus did remember, vaguely. There had been a time, decades ago, when he'd joined Blackwell Industries with dreams of building something meaningful, back when his father's company still carried the weight of family legacy rather than pure profit, back when he still believed in things like community and responsibility. That was before the hostile takeover attempts, before the lawsuits, before his ex-wife Patricia had looked him in the eye and said, "I don't know who you are anymore, Marcus, but whoever you've become, I can't love him." "That was a long time ago," Marcus said finally. "We were naive. Maybe, or maybe we were human." Richard's voice softened. "When was the last time you actually visited one of your factories, Marcus? Actually looked the people in the eye before you destroyed their lives?" Marcus ended the call without answering. He didn't need to look anyone in the eye. He'd learned long ago that emotional attachments were liabilities. His father had been emotional, sentimental about the Blackwell name and taking care of our people. And where had that gotten him? A heart attack at 52 and a company hemorrhaging money. Marcus had rebuilt Blackwell Industries from the ground up, transforming it from a regional manufacturing company into a global conglomerate. He'd done it by making the hard choices, the unpopular choices, the necessary choices. His intercom crackled. "Mr. Blackwell, there's a situation downstairs in the lobby." Marcus frowned. Jennifer sounded nervous, which was unusual. "What kind of situation?" Well, sir, there's a group of people here, from Riverside. They're asking to speak with you." Through his floor-to-ceiling windows, Marcus could see news vans pulling up to the curb. His jaw tightened. He'd expected this. The media circus, the sob stories, the desperate attempts to change his mind. It was all part of the game. "Call security, have them removed." "Sir, one of them, she's just a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She's asking specifically for you, by name. She says her daddy told her you're the man who can save their town." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He dealt with unions, protesters, even death threats. But a child, that was a new tactic, and it reeked of manipulation. "I don't care if she's the Pope, Jennifer. I don't meet with protesters." "She's not protesting, sir. She's just sitting there, in the lobby. She's been there for 2 hours. Security tried to make her leave, but her father's with her, and they're not causing any trouble. They're just waiting. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of a migraine building behind his temples. He'd conquered Fortune 500 companies, negotiated billion-dollar mergers, and stared down the most ruthless businessmen in America. He would not be emotionally blackmailed by a child. Fine, give me 5 minutes, then send them up. But make it clear this is a courtesy meeting only. Nothing they say will change my decision. Yes, sir. Marcus walked to his window, watching the protesters gathering on the sidewalk below. Signs reading, "Save Riverside" and "Families over Profits" bobbed in the afternoon breeze. He'd seen it all before. In a week, maybe 2, they'd give up and go home. They always did. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. Sharp suit, harder eyes, a face that Forbes had once called the most feared in American business. He'd earned that title. He'd worked for it, sacrificed for it, bled for it. The elevator dinged softly behind him. Marcus didn't turn around immediately. He'd learned that the first moment of any negotiation was crucial. Show strength, show control, show that you held all the cards. "Mr. Blackwell?" A man's voice, nervous, respectful. "Thank you for seeing us. This is my daughter, Emma. Emma, say hello to Mr. Blackwell." "Hello." The voice was small, clear, unafraid. Marcus turned around, prepared to deliver the speech he'd given 1,000 times before. Business is business, nothing personal. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made. But when his eyes met Emma Chen's, the words died in his throat. She was tiny, maybe 8 years old, with long black hair and eyes that seemed far too old for her face. She wore a simple yellow dress and clutched a crayon drawing in her small hands. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped Marcus cold. It was the way she looked at him, not with fear or anger or even sadness, but with something he hadn't seen directed at him in years: hope. Marcus Blackwell had stared down senators, intimidated billionaire rivals, and made grown men weep in boardrooms. But standing in his pristine office, looking into the hopeful eyes of 8-year-old Emma Chen, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: uncertainty. "Mr. Blackwell," Emma's father stepped forward, his work-worn hands trembling slightly. David Chen was clearly exhausted, his factory uniform still bearing the stains of his morning shift. "I'm David Chen, line supervisor at Riverside Manufacturing. This is my daughter, Emma." Marcus nodded curtly, his business mask sliding back into place. "Mr. Chen, I assume you're here about the factory closure. While I appreciate your creative approach in bringing your daughter, my decision is final." "Daddy," Emma tugged at her father's sleeve, "can I show him my picture now?" David's face flushed with embarrassment. "Emma, maybe we should—" "It's okay, Daddy. You said Mr. Blackwell makes important decisions. Maybe he needs to see this." Emma stepped forward, completely unintimidated by the imposing figure before her. She held out her crayon drawing with the confidence only a child could possess. Marcus found himself taking the paper almost involuntarily. The drawing was simple but detailed. Stick figures representing a factory with dozens of tiny people walking through the doors. Above it, in careful child's handwriting, were the words, "My daddy's work family." "See?" Emma pointed to a figure she'd colored in carefully. "That's my daddy, and that's Mr. Rodriguez, who gives me candy when Daddy brings me to visit, and that's Mrs. Patterson, who helped when Mommy was sick, and that's Tommy's dad and Sarah's mom and—" "Emma," David interrupted gently, "Mr. Blackwell is very busy." But Marcus found himself studying the drawing. Each stick figure had a name written beside it in Emma's careful script. 300 jobs, he'd told the board, 300 redundancies, but Emma had drawn them as people, individuals with faces and names and families. "How old are you, Emma?" The question surprised him. He hadn't meant to ask it. 8 3/4, Emma replied seriously. "Daddy says I'm very mature for my age. That's why he brought me. He says sometimes grown-ups forget what's really important." Marcus set the drawing on his desk, his jaw tightening. "And what do you think is really important?" Emma considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court judge. "Well, my teacher says the most important thing is being kind, and my mommy says it's taking care of your family, and my daddy—" She looked up at David with pure adoration. "My daddy says it's doing work that matters." "Your daddy is fortunate to have such clear priorities," Marcus replied, though his voice carried an edge. "Unfortunately, business decisions can't be made based on kindness alone." "Why not?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus blinked, caught off guard by its simplicity. In 30 years of corporate warfare, no one had ever asked him that. They'd questioned his methods, his motives, his margins, but never the fundamental premise that kindness and business were mutually exclusive. Because, Marcus began, then paused. The answer should have been automatic. Because shareholders demand returns, because the market is ruthless, because sentiment doesn't pay dividends. But looking at Emma's expectant face, the words felt hollow. Because that's how business works, he finished lamely. But you're the boss, Emma said with devastating logic. Can't you change how it works? David shifted uncomfortably. Emma, honey, it's not that simple. Actually, Mr. Chen, let her speak. Marcus surprised himself again. There was something about this child's unfiltered perspective that was unsettling, like she was holding up a mirror he'd spent years avoiding. Emma brightened at the attention. My daddy comes home sad now, every night. He tries to hide it, but I can hear him talking to Mommy when they think I'm asleep. He says he doesn't know what we'll do if the factory closes. Marcus felt that familiar cold weight in his chest, the one he'd learned to ignore. I'm sure your father will find other work. Where? Emma asked simply. Daddy says Riverside only has the factory and the farm store and the diner, and the farm store might close too, because Mr. Peterson can't afford to keep it open if everyone moves away. The child's words painted a picture Marcus had willfully ignored. Riverside wasn't just losing a factory, it was facing economic extinction. The ripple effects would destroy the entire community. These are complex economic forces, Marcus said, falling back on corporate speak. Sometimes difficult transitions are necessary for... Do you have kids, Mr. Blackwell? The question hit him like a physical blow. Marcus's hands clenched involuntarily, as memories he'd spent years burying clawed their way to the surface. Patricia crying in their empty nursery, the adoption papers that never got signed, the marriage that crumbled under the weight of his obsession with work, and her desperate need for a family. No, he said quietly. I don't. Emma's expression softened with genuine sympathy. That's sad. Kids are the best part of families. Maybe that's why you don't understand. Understand what? Why the factory matters so much? It's not just about money. It's about all the daddies and mommies who work there, and all the kids like me who need their parents to come home happy instead of scared. Marcus walked to his window, his reflection wavering in the glass. 40 floors below, the protesters had grown in number, but from this height, they looked like Emma's stick figures, small, vulnerable, human. Emma, he said without turning around, what would you do if you were in my position? I'd visit, she said immediately. If I had to make a decision about people, I'd want to meet them first. Daddy always says you can't really know someone until you see where they live. Marcus turned back to face her. You want me to visit Riverside? Will you? Emma's eyes lit up with hope that made Marcus's chest tighten painfully. You could meet everyone and see the town, and maybe you'd understand why we can't let it die. David stepped forward, embarrassment and desperation warring on his face. Mr. Blackwell, you don't have to. Emma doesn't understand how busy you are. But Marcus was studying the child's drawing again. 300 stick figures, each with a name, each representing a family, a story, a life that would be shattered by his decision. When was the last time you visited Riverside, Mr. Chen? I live there, sir. Born and raised. No, Marcus clarified. When was the last time you really saw it? The way Emma sees it? David looked confused. I'm not sure I understand. Marcus wasn't sure he understood either, but something in Emma's unwavering gaze was chipping away at the ice wall he'd built around his heart. And for the first time in decades, Marcus Blackwell found himself genuinely curious about the human cost of his decisions. One day, he heard himself saying, I'll give you one day. I'll visit Riverside tomorrow. Emma's squeal of delight echoed through the sterile office, like sunlight breaking through clouds. If this story is touching you in some way, comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Every place has its own struggles, and sometimes it's incredible to see how we all connect through such human stories. The black Mercedes looked obscenely out of place on Riverside's main street. Marcus Blackwell sat in the back seat, watching small-town America roll past his tinted windows, like scenes from a movie he'd forgotten he'd ever watched. Paint-peeled storefronts, cracked sidewalks, and the kind of desperate hope that clung to dying places like morning fog. Sir, are you certain about this? His driver, Thomas, glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. The security team strongly advised against. I'll be fine, Thomas. Marcus straightened his tie, a nervous habit he thought he'd conquered decades ago. It's just a factory tour. But even as he said it, Marcus knew this was more than that. Emma Chen's crayon drawing lay folded in his breast pocket, and her voice echoed in his head. You can't really know someone until you see where they live. The Mercedes pulled up to Riverside Manufacturing, a sprawling brick building that had seen better decades. David Chen stood waiting by the employee entrance, no longer in his factory uniform, but wearing his Sunday best, a pressed shirt and tie that probably came out only for weddings and funerals. Marcus stepped out of the car into air thick with industrial fumes and something else, the weight of history, of generations who had clocked in and out of these same doors. "Mr. Blackwell," David extended his hand, and Marcus was surprised by the firmness of his grip. "Thank you for coming. I know this wasn't conventional. Your daughter is very persuasive." Marcus found himself looking around for Emma, though he wasn't sure why. "She's at school," David said, catching his glance. "But she made me promise to show you her favorite places in town afterward, if you have time." Marcus nodded curtly, though the idea of a guided tour by an 8-year-old standard seemed surreal. "Shall we begin?" The factory floor was a symphony of controlled chaos. Machines hummed and clanked in rhythmic precision, while workers moved between stations with practiced efficiency. But what struck Marcus wasn't the operation. He'd toured dozens of facilities. It was the way the workers looked at David Chen. Respect, genuine affection, the kind of camaraderie Marcus had read about in business school case studies, but never actually witnessed. "Morning, Mr. Chen," a weathered woman with graying hair waved from her station. "This the big shot from New York?" Marcus bristled at the casual irreverence, but David just smiled. "Rosa, meet Mr. Blackwell. Rosa Patterson has worked here longer than anyone, 32 years. Rosa wiped her hands on her apron and approached without a trace of the deference Marcus was accustomed to. "So you're the one shutting us down." The directness caught Marcus off guard. "Mrs. Patterson, the decision was based on—" "Oh, I know why," Rosa interrupted. "Numbers don't add up, right? We're not profitable enough for your fancy spreadsheets." She gestured around the floor. "But see, Mr. Blackwell, this place isn't just about numbers to us. My husband died in Iraq 12 years ago. This job? It's what kept me and my kids from losing our house." Marcus felt heat rising in his collar. "I'm sorry for your loss, but individual circumstances can't matter." Rosa's eyes flashed. "You want to talk numbers? My daughter Michelle just graduated nursing school, first in our family to go to college. She's staying in Riverside to work at the clinic. If we all leave, who's going to take care of the elderly folks? The sick kids?" Before Marcus could respond, a commotion erupted near the loading dock. A young man, barely out of his teens, was arguing with a supervisor about a damaged shipment. "That's my nephew, Tommy," David explained as they walked over. "Just started last month. He's supporting his grandmother while his mom's in treatment." "Treatment?" Marcus asked. "Cancer." David's voice was quiet. "Tommy dropped out of community college to work full-time. The insurance here, it's kept his family afloat." Marcus watched Tommy directing other workers to salvage what they could from the damaged goods. The kid moved with purpose, took responsibility, showed leadership. In another life, another company, he might have been management material. "How many stories like this are there?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. 300, David replied simply. "One for every job you're cutting." They continued the tour, and with each station, each introduction, Marcus felt something shifting inside him. These weren't the faceless numbers from his quarterly reports. They were people with mortgages and dreams and responsibilities that extended far beyond the factory walls. After the tour, David led him outside where Emma waited, having apparently convinced someone to pick her up from school early. She bounced on her toes with excitement, clutching what looked like a hand-drawn map. "Mr. Blackwell, you came. Daddy, did you show him the break room where everyone celebrates birthdays? And the bulletin board with all the baby pictures?" Marcus realized he hadn't seen those things, though they'd walked right past them. He'd been so focused on efficiency metrics that he'd missed the human touches that made this place more than just a factory. "I thought we could walk through town," Emma announced, unfolding her map. "I marked all the important places." Against every instinct screaming that this was a waste of time, Marcus found himself following an 8-year-old down Main Street. Emma's important places included Peterson's General Store, where everyone gets their groceries and catches up on news, the library, where Mrs. Henderson reads stories to all the kids, and Murphy's Diner, the only place in town to get coffee and gossip. At each stop, Emma introduced him like he was a visiting dignitary rather than the man about to destroy their world. And everywhere they went, Marcus saw the same thing, a community woven together by invisible threads of mutual dependence and genuine care. "See?" Emma said as they stood in the town square, a modest patch of grass with a weathered gazebo at its center. "It's not just about the factory. It's about everything being connected, like a spider web. If you break one part, the whole thing falls down. Marcus stared at the gazebo, where a few elderly men played checkers, at the mothers pushing strollers, at the teenagers gathered after school. Emma was right. Riverside wasn't just a town with a factory. The factory was the heart that kept the entire organism alive. "Emma," he said slowly, "what happens if the factory really does close?" Her bright expression faltered for the first time. "Daddy says we might have to move to a big city where there are jobs, but I don't want to leave. This is my home." Looking into Emma's eyes, those same hopeful eyes that had stopped him cold in his office, Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. The ice wall he'd built around his heart, the one that had protected him from exactly this kind of emotional manipulation, was developing fissures. The emergency board meeting was supposed to start at 8 a.m. sharp. Instead, Marcus Blackwell sat alone in his office at 7:30, staring at Emma Chen's crayon drawings spread across his mahogany desk. Each stick figure seemed to stare back at him accusingly. His phone buzzed incessantly. Stock analysts wanting confirmation of the Riverside closure, reporters seeking comment, his own board members demanding explanations for his sudden radio silence. But Marcus couldn't focus on any of it. All he could hear was Emma's voice. "It's like a spider web. If you break one part, the whole thing falls down." Jennifer knocked softly and entered without waiting for permission, something that would have earned a sharp reprimand any other day. "Mr. Blackwell, the board is assembled. And sir, there's something else. Emma Chen is downstairs with her father. They don't have an appointment, but send them up." The words surprised Marcus as much as they did Jennifer. "And tell the board to wait." "Sir?" Marcus was already standing, straightening his tie with hands that trembled slightly. "Tell them to wait, Jennifer. Some things are more important than quarterly reports." Minutes later, Emma bounded into his office with the same fearless energy that had disarmed him 2 days earlier. But this time, Marcus noticed what he'd missed before: the dark circles under David Chen's eyes, the way the man's shoulders sagged with exhaustion, the forced brightness in Emma's smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mr. Blackwell." Emma held up a new drawing, this one more elaborate than the first. "I made you another picture. It's what Riverside could look like if the factory stayed open." The drawing showed the same basic town layout, but this version was alive with detail. New businesses, a playground, even what looked like a small hospital. In the center, the factory was depicted not as just another building, but as a tree with branches reaching into every corner of the community. "Emma drew that last night," David said quietly. "She stayed up until almost midnight working on it. She wanted to make sure you understood what we could become, not just what we are." Marcus studied the drawing, seeing not just a child's hopeful imagination, but a vision of possibility he'd trained himself not to see. "Emma, what made you think of drawing it like this?" "Well," Emma began, settling into the chair across from his desk with the confidence of a seasoned negotiator, "I was thinking about what you said yesterday, about difficult decisions. And I realized maybe you think keeping the factory open is impossible, but impossible things happen all the time, don't they? Not in business, Emma. Business runs on certainties, profit margins, return on investment. But you run the business," Emma countered with 8-year-old logic. "So you can change the rules, can't you?" Marcus felt that familiar tightening in his chest. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" Emma's eyes, those impossibly hopeful eyes, fixed on his. "My teacher says the best leaders are the ones who help other people shine. Isn't that what businesses should do too?" The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything Marcus had built his empire upon. He walked to his window, 40 floors above the city that had made him rich but left him hollow. "Emma," he said without turning around, "do you know what happened to the last CEO who made decisions based on kindness instead of profit? What happened? He lost everything. His company failed. Hundreds of people lost their jobs anyway." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. "Sometimes being kind means making cruel choices to prevent even worse outcomes. But what if?" Emma's voice was thoughtful, careful. "What if being kind means being brave enough to try something different?" Marcus turned to face her, and for a moment he saw not an 8-year-old girl but the ghost of his younger self, the idealistic business school graduate who'd once believed companies could be both profitable and purposeful. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Do you understand that keeping your daddy's factory open might mean I lose money? That other people, shareholders, investors, might be angry with me." Emma considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court judge. "Will you lose your house?" "No." "Will you not have enough food to eat?" "No, Emma. I'll still have more money than I could spend in a lifetime. Then why does it matter if you lose some? Emma's head tilted with genuine curiosity. If you have enough for yourself, isn't it okay to share so other people can have enough too? The simplicity of her logic was devastating. Marcus had spent decades justifying the accumulation of wealth he couldn't possibly use, defending profit margins that served no purpose beyond numerical superiority. When had he stopped asking himself why any of it mattered? His intercom crackled. "Mr. Blackwell, the board is getting restless. They're asking, tell them I'll be right there." Marcus straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of a decision that would define not just his legacy, but his soul. "Emma, I need to go talk to some very important people about your daddy's factory. Are you going to save it?" The hope in her voice was almost unbearable. Marcus knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level, something he'd never done with another human being in his 45 years. "Emma, I'm going to try to do something I haven't done in a very long time. I'm going to try to be brave." The boardroom fell silent as Marcus entered. 23 of the most powerful executives in America sat around the polished table, their faces a mixture of impatience and barely concealed frustration. "Marcus," Richard Hayes leaned forward, "what the hell is going on? The market is waiting for confirmation of the Riverside closure. Every minute we delay costs us money." Marcus cut him off, taking his seat at the head of the table. "It costs us money. But gentlemen, I want to ask you something. When was the last time any of you visited one of our facilities? Actually walked the floor, met the people whose lives depend on our decisions?" The room shifted uncomfortably. Marcus pressed on. "I spent yesterday in Riverside. I met a woman who's worked for us for 32 years. A kid supporting his grandmother while his mother fights cancer. I met an entire community that exists because we exist, and I realized something." Marcus stood, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We built this company to last, not just to make money, but to mean something. And somewhere along the way we forgot that companies don't exist in spreadsheets. They exist in the real world, with real people who depend on us to be more than just profit margins." "Marcus," another board member interrupted, "sentiment doesn't pay dividends." "No, but purpose does." Marcus smiled, thinking of Emma's latest drawing. "I'm proposing we restructure Riverside as a pilot program. Community-centered manufacturing. We take a smaller profit margin in exchange for becoming the heart of that town's economic ecosystem. We help them build the future Emma Chen drew in crayon, not just a factory, but a thriving community." The room erupted in protests, but Marcus held up his hand. "This isn't about charity, it's about vision, about being brave enough to prove that businesses can be both profitable and purposeful. And if it fails," he paused, thinking of Emma's unwavering faith, "if it fails, at least we'll fail, while trying to be the kind of leaders who help other people shine." And now that you've reached the end, please tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Your presence matters, and your story does too.